My name is Elena Marie Sullivan. I'm 29 years old, a senior commercial architect in Chicago, and until the week of my 29th birthday, my family spoke about my career with the kind of careful sympathy people usually reserve for someone whose Etsy shop is failing. I make $145,000 a year. Apparently that information had somehow escaped them. My younger sister Ashley, 27, welded random pieces of metal together and called herself an emerging contemporary artist. To my parents, she was practically Georgia O'Keeffe with a blowtorch. Last Christmas was the moment I realized how ridiculous our family had become. Ashley stood beside the tree, holding something that looked like a coat hanger, after losing a fight with a garbage disposal. It represents industrial decay under late-stage capitalism, she explained solemnly. Dad stared at it, as though she had unveiled the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. This is museum-quality work, Ashley. Mom already had her phone out. Our artistic genius does it again, she whispered while uploading pictures. I sat 6 feet away holding a glass of wine. 2 weeks earlier, I had completed the interior redesign of Millennium Tower, 40 stories of commercial space that had consumed 18 months of my life. 60-hour weeks, emergency site visits, contractor disputes, 3 redesigns of the central atrium, because the developer changed his mind every time the weather changed. The project had just received an innovation award from the Chicago Design Association. Nobody asked me about it. Mom eventually glanced over. Elena, how's your little building project going? Little building project. I remember staring at Ashley's twisted metal masterpiece and thinking, one day all of you are going to understand exactly how absurd this is. I just didn't know that day would begin with a forgotten birthday. The strange part was that I had already discovered Ashley's secret. 6 months earlier, I attended a networking reception at the Palmer House. During a conversation about local art spaces, I mentioned Ashley's name. An older man beside me turned around. Ashley Sullivan. His name was Elliot Mercer. He owned Westside Contemporary Gallery, the place Ashley constantly bragged about exhibiting. You're her sister. I nodded. She's one of our exhibition artists. I smiled politely. She seems to be doing well. Something changed in his expression. Not quite amusement. More like embarrassment on my behalf. Well, she certainly pays for good placement. Pays. Elliot took a sip of coffee. We use a vanity exhibition model. Artists rent wall space. Prime positioning is $1,500 a month. My smile froze. And sales. He shrugged. Ashley sold 3 smaller pieces in roughly 2 years, maybe a few $100s each. I remember standing there while numbers automatically assembled themselves in my head. $1,500 a month. $18,000 a year. Maybe $600 in annual sales. That wasn't an art career. It was an expensive subscription to pretending she had one. And somebody was financing it. So, I started investigating. I'm an architect. Research is practically an occupational disease. 3 weeks later, I had a spreadsheet. Dad's business account showed repeated transfers connected to Ashley's expenses. $1,800 every month for 26 months. $6,000 bye-bye. Then there was her River North loft. $2,400 a month. Art supplies. Studio expenses. Health insurance. Her car payment. Whenever Ashley's account should have collapsed, another convenient family deposit appeared. By my calculations, Mom and Dad had put roughly $89,000 into Ashley's artistic lifestyle over 3 years. I stared at that number for a long time. 3 years earlier, when I bought my condo, I had asked Dad whether he could temporarily loan me part of the down payment. Not give. Loan. He spent 40 minutes explaining adulthood to me. Financial independence builds character, Elena. I remembered sitting across from him nodding while promising myself I would never ask again. Apparently, independence built character only when I needed money. When Ashley needed it, dependence became investing in talent. I said nothing. I saved everything. Statements, gallery information, public records, sales figure, screenshots of Ashley posting captions like another successful exhibition beneath photographs of walls she had literally paid to occupy. Then Millennium Tower ended. My completion bonus was scheduled to hit the same week as my birthday. 75美元, 000. My parents didn't know. Why would they? They had never asked enough questions about my work to discover what I actually did. Monday was my 29th birthday. Mom didn't call. Dad didn't text. Ashley sent me 3 Instagram reels that morning, and somehow never noticed the birthday icon beside my name. At 1:47 p.m., I sat alone in my condo eating leftover Thai food. My phone lit up. For one stupid second, I thought it might be Mom. It was a promotional email from Crate and Barrel. I laughed. Then, unexpectedly, I cried. Not dramatically. Just a few quiet tears while sitting at my kitchen island. Because there is something uniquely humiliating about being successful everywhere except inside your own family. Tuesday morning, I found Daniel Park at the office coffee station. Daniel was my project partner, MIT graduate financial obsessive, and one of the few people who understood exactly how much work Millennium Tower had required. He looked at my face. Bad birthday. They forgot. His expression softened. All of them. I nodded. Then I placed my folder on the counter. I need your help destroying a fake financial empire. Daniel stopped halfway through drinking his espresso. Business or personal? Family. His eyes immediately sharpened. Talk. 20 minutes later, he knew everything. Ashley. The gallery. The subsidies. The $89,000. When I finished, Daniel leaned back. Your sister has earned maybe $1,400 selling art, while your parents spent almost 90 grand maintaining the illusion that she's successful. Approximately. And you redesigned Millennium Tower. Yes. And they forgot your birthday. Yes. Daniel stared at me. Then he smiled. Not kindly. We need to buy you a car. I blinked. What? Something impossible to ignore. I was considering upgrading anyway. No. He pointed his espresso cup at me. Not an upgrade. A statement. At exactly 2:03 that afternoon, my banking app sent a notification. Deposit $75,000. Millennium Tower completion bonus. I showed Daniel. He looked at the screen, then at me. Mercedes. I smiled for the first time all day. Mercedes. By 7 that evening, we were standing inside a dealership staring at a matte black AMG C63. It looked less like transportation and more like a threat. The final price came to $94,367. I put $60,000 down and financed the rest comfortably. At 9:15 p.m., the engine came alive beneath me. For years, my parents had treated me like the daughter who never quite made it. That night, driving through Chicago in a car I had bought with money from the career they dismissed, something inside me changed. Daniel followed me to Navy Pier. We photographed the Mercedes against the illuminated skyline. Then I typed the caption, Happy 29th to me. Dream car. Dream career. Millennium Tower officially completed. Completion bonus officially enjoyed. Sometimes you have to celebrate yourself. I posted it. Friends reacted immediately. Co-workers congratulated me. Former classmates messaged asking about the car. People I barely knew remembered my birthday better than my own family. Mom. Nothing. Dad. Nothing. Ashley. Nothing. Until 1:20 a.m. My phone rang. Dad. I looked at Daniel. He grinned. I answered on the third ring. Hey, Dad. His first words were not happy birthday. Elena Marie Sullivan. Where the hell did you get the money for that car? And just like that, after 29 years of being invisible, my family finally saw me. They had absolutely no idea what they were about to discover. Dad didn't even bother pretending to sound calm. Elena, that is a $90,000 automobile. 94 technically. That is not funny. I wasn't joking. There was a pause on the line, followed by the muffled sound of Mom asking something in the background. Then Dad came back. Are you in debt? I leaned against the side of my Mercedes and looked out at the black water beyond Navy Pier. I have a mortgage. You know what I mean. Then ask what you mean. Another pause. Did you take out some ridiculous loan to buy that car? No. Did you borrow money from someone? No. Are you involved in something illegal? That one actually made me laugh. Daniel, standing a few feet away, had to turn his head so Dad wouldn't hear him. Seriously, I asked. Elena, people don't just wake up and buy cars like that. No. People work for them. Mom took the phone. Elena, sweetheart, we're not attacking you. which was always how my mother began sentences when she was absolutely attacking me. "We're concerned. This feels impulsive. I researched the car for 3 months. You never mentioned it. You never asked." She ignored that. "Cars depreciate. You should be thinking about retirement savings, emergencies." "Mom, what? When was the last time you gave Ashley this lecture?" "Silence," I continued. "When she paid $1,500 a month in gallery fees." Mom's voice changed immediately. "What gallery fees?" "When she bought thousands in supplies?" "Elena, when she signed a lease on a $2,400 loft." "That is different." There it was. The sentence that had defined most of my adult life. Different. Ashley wasting money was an investment. Me spending mine was irresponsible. "Ashley is building a career," Mom said. "So on. Architecture is stable." I almost laughed. That somehow made it less worthy of celebration. Mom didn't notice the irony. Dad took the phone again. "This is exactly why we need to sit down together." "Why?" "Because you're making emotional financial decisions." "No, Dad. I made one financial decision with my own money. You dropped $60,000 on a down payment." I froze. "How did you know that?" Another silence. Apparently, he had been doing research. Maybe calling dealerships. Maybe calculating financing. Amazing. 29 years, and a Mercedes finally inspired him to study my life. "Yes," I said. 60,000 down. Jesus Christ. "Dad, the car costs less than what you've put into Ashley's art career." That ended the conversation. Not dramatically, just complete silence. For several seconds I heard nothing, except faint background movement. Finally, Dad said very slowly, "What did you just say?" "You heard me. How would you know anything about what we give Ashley?" "I know enough." Mom said something in the background. Dad covered the phone. I could hear their voices, but not the words. Then, he came back. "Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Dinner." "Is this a birthday dinner?" "Elena. Just checking. We're discussing this as a family." "Fine. 6. I'll be there." He hung up. Daniel walked over immediately. "Well, they want a family meeting." His grin widened. "Of course they do. They think they're going to interrogate me about buying a car. They're about 18 hours away from finding out their financial genius daughter has been funding herself while their golden child has been renting applause." I looked at him. "Don't call Ashley a golden child around my mother, unless you want to see denial in physical form." Daniel pulled out his phone. "Actually, denial is about to become the least of their problems." He turned the screen toward me. On it was a draft complaint, addressed to the Illinois Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division. I scanned the first lines. "Daniel, what? You already wrote this." I said I'd help. "This is not helping. This is launching artillery." He shrugged. Westside Contemporary charges artists thousands for wall space markets exhibitions as Career Achievements takes percentages on sales, and appears to obscure the distinction between representation and paid placement. If they're misleading clients, that deserves review. I read further. He had documented testimonials, archived website language fees, business filings, and complaints from other artists. "How many people did you find?" 7 so far. 7. Families funding exhibition fees. He swiped to a spreadsheet. Estimated combined loss, just under 400,000. My chest tightened. "What exactly are you planning to do?" "File complaints. Let regulators decide whether the business model crosses the line." "And Ashley? If she's just paying to play, she's probably a victim." "Probably." Daniel looked at me carefully. "If she's recruiting people, taking referral money, or knowingly misrepresenting the gallery's business model, that could get more complicated." That sentence followed me home. The next morning, Daniel had already filed everything, before I finished my first coffee. At 9:14 a.m., he walked into my office holding a stack of papers. "Update. That tone worries me." "It should." He dropped the documents onto my desk. 12 additional artists. I stared at him. "You found 12 more. Families paying for fees, events, catalogs, promotional packages. Conservative total over 3 years is around 420,000. I flipped through the evidence. This is insane. "No, it's scalable." "What?" "That's what makes it worse. The gallery found insecure artists, sold them prestige, then monetized the dream. My phone buzzed. Ashley, can we talk before dinner? I showed Daniel. He nodded. Pressure's starting. Then he opened the gallery website. At the top was a new notice. Westside Contemporary Gallery is currently cooperating with inquiries regarding exhibition policies and pricing structures. I looked at him. They already know. Apparently. How? Regulatory office probably contacted them immediately. My stomach tightened. This had stopped being a family argument. Now institutions were involved. At 1140 a.m., someone named Elliot Mercer called. I recognized the voice immediately. Elena Sullivan. Yes. This is Elliot from Westside Contemporary. We met at the Palmer House. I remember. He sounded different than he had 6 months ago. Less casual. More guarded. We've been contacted by state investigators. I saw the notice. They're reviewing our pricing model. Okay. They also mentioned Ashley. I straightened. What about her? They're interviewing, exhibiting artists, especially people whose fees may be subsidized by relatives. Daniel looked up from across the office. I put the call on speaker. When I asked, this afternoon, for Ashley? Yes. Does she know? They contacted her directly. Elliot hesitated. Elena, do you know why this is happening now? No idea. That wasn't entirely true, but it was true enough. After the call ended, Daniel leaned back. Your sister is going into an investigator interview 4 hours before your family dinner. Do you realize how insane that sounds? Yes. And you're enjoying this. Professionally. You are a terrible person. I'm an efficient person. At 2:03 p.m., Ashley started texting. Elena, what the hell is happening? Then, state investigators want to interview me about the gallery. Then, did you know about this? Then, Mom and Dad are freaking out. Then, answer me. I stared at the messages. Daniel didn't even look up. Don't respond. She sounds scared. She should tell the truth. What if she's just a victim? Then telling the truth helps her. That was hard to argue with. At 3:00 p.m., Ashley went into her interview. At 5:07, Daniel received an update from one of the complainants he had connected with. Gallery license is under formal review. I looked at the clock. 53 minutes until dinner. At 5:42, I left my condo with a manila folder in one hand and my car keys in the other. For the first time in my life, I was not nervous about confronting my family. I was exhausted. There's a difference. Nervousness means you still care how people judge you. Exhaustion means you no longer have energy to perform for them. I parked outside my parents' house at exactly 5:59. Dad opened the door before I knocked. He was standing straight, arms folded. Elena. Dad. Mom appeared behind him. Ashley was already in the dining room, and the second I saw her, I knew the interview had gone badly. Her face was pale, eyes swollen, hands clasped tightly together. Mom hugged me. We're glad you came. I looked at her. Yesterday was my birthday. She let go. Nobody said anything. Dad cleared his throat. We're not here to rehash that. No. Apparently we're here to discuss my car. You're being dramatic. I sat down. The manila folder landed beside my chair. Dad noticed it immediately. What's that? Research. He frowned. I almost smiled. Dinner began with 5 minutes of forced silence. Then Dad launched into his prepared speech. You've always been responsible, Elena. That's why this purchase concerned us. I cut into my food. I researched the car for months. $94,000 is still excessive. For you. For anyone. Ashley suddenly looked up. Elena. Her voice shook. Did you know Westside was being investigated? I set my fork down. What investigation? She stared at me. Don't. Ashley, I genuinely don't know what you told investigators. They interviewed me for 2 hours. Mom turned toward her. 2 hours. Yes. Dad frowned. What were they asking? About payments, sales, exhibition fees. Mom's expression changed. What exhibition fees? Ashley closed her eyes. And there it was. The first crack. The gallery charges me for space. Dad sat straighter. How much? A little. How much is a little? Ashley swallowed. $1,500. Per year. She didn't answer. Dad's face hardened. Per year, Ashley. Per month. Mom went still. Dad stared at her. You pay $1,500 every month to put your art on their walls. It's normal in some emerging artist spaces. No, I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. It's called a vanity gallery. Ashley snapped. You don't know anything about the art world. I reached for the folder. Actually, I know quite a bit now. I placed the first set of papers on the table. 26 months of direct transfers. $1,800 a month. Dad grabbed the top sheet. His expression changed as he read. How did you get this? Research. Mom leaned over. What are these? Transfers associated with Ashley's expenses. Ashley looked at me with pure hatred. You've been spying on me. No. I've been paying attention. I slid another page across the table. Gallery fees, rent, studio costs, supplies, insurance, car payments. Dad looked at Ashley. We gave you $1,800 a month for living expenses. It was living expenses. You were using most of it for gallery fees. It was part of my career. I placed another document down. Art sales over 3 years. Ashley went silent. Mom read the number. $1,400. Approximately, I said. Dad looked at Ashley. That can't be right. It's complicated. No, I said. It's actually extremely simple. I looked at all 3 of them. You spent nearly $89,000 supporting the image of Ashley being a successful artist. Mom flinched. Elena. Meanwhile, 3 years ago, I asked for a temporary loan for my condo down payment. Dad looked away. You told me financial independence builds character. Silence. I pulled out one final sheet. My salary last year was $145,000. Mom's eyes widened. Dad actually looked confused. 145. Yes. The Millennium Project. Completion bonus was $75,000. Ashley stared at me. You got a $75,000 bonus. Yes, Mom whispered. Why didn't you tell us? I laughed once. You never asked. Nobody spoke. So I continued. I led a major commercial redesign. I won an industry award. I worked 60-hour weeks for 18 months. My voice started shaking despite everything I had promised myself. And last Christmas you spent 20 minutes praising a piece of twisted metal Ashley made, while Mom called my project, that little building thing. Mom looked down. Dad opened his mouth. I stopped him. No. Don't fix it now. I stood. This was never about the Mercedes. Ashley scoffed. It obviously was. No. The Mercedes just made you notice me. That silenced her. I picked up my folder. For years I thought if I worked harder, earned more, achieved something bigger, eventually you would treat me like I mattered. My throat tightened. I was wrong. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Elena, honey, I don't need an apology tonight. I looked at Ashley. And I don't need you to fail for me to succeed. Then I looked at my parents. But I am done pretending this family has treated us equally. Dad's face had gone pale. What are you saying? I'm saying Ashley's financial mess is yours to figure out. Elena. And my life is mine. I turned toward the door. Behind me, Ashley finally said the one thing that made me stop. They might interview me again. I looked back. Her voice had lost all arrogance. They asked whether I referred other artists to Westside. Something cold moved through my stomach. How many? She didn't answer. Dad looked between us. What does that mean? Ashley whispered. I don't know. I did. And, judging by the expression on Daniel's face when I called him 10 minutes later from my Mercedes, he did too. Because when I told him what Ashley had admitted, he went silent. Then he said, Elena, this just became much bigger than a vanity gallery complaint. Daniel's voice had changed. Until then, he had treated the gallery investigation almost like an elaborate puzzle, numbers, contracts, misleading advertisements, financial patterns. Now he sounded serious. Elena, tell me exactly what Ashley said. I sat behind the wheel of my Mercedes outside my parents' house, the engine off their dining room windows glowing behind me. She said investigators asked whether she referred other artists to Westside. How many? She wouldn't say. Did she mention referral payments? No. Daniel went quiet. I could hear typing through the phone. Finally, he said, come to the office tomorrow morning. What are you thinking? I don't want to speculate until I verify something. That was not comforting. What? Something. Elena. Danielle. If Ashley was actively recruiting paying artists, she may not be viewed only as a customer anymore. I looked back at my parents' house. Through the window, Dad was still sitting at the dining table with the documents I had left behind. Mom stood beside Ashley. For years, that image would have hurt me. Mom, comforting Ashley. Dad worrying about Ashley. Ashley occupying the center of everything. But that night, I felt strangely detached. Tomorrow, Daniel repeated. 8:30. I'll be there. I drove home. By 6:00 the next morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Ashley, we need to talk. Then, this investigation is getting serious. Mom, please call me. We need to work through this together. Dad, I reviewed our financial records. We need another conversation about your sister. Nobody mentioned my birthday. Some things remained beautifully consistent. At 8:17, Daniel texted. Emergency meeting. Office. Now. I arrived, 13 minutes later. His desk looked like a legal assistant had suffered a nervous breakdown on top of it. Printouts. Archived web pages. Screenshots. Corporate filings. 3 coffee cups. Daniel pointed at the chair. Sit. That bad. Potentially. I said. He slid a document toward me. The inquiry expanded overnight. To what? Westside isn't the only gallery under review anymore. He opened a spreadsheet. Investigators are examining similar vanity gallery operations across multiple jurisdictions. They're looking at whether these businesses misrepresented paid exhibition services as genuine professional representation. I scanned the pages. Then I saw Ashley's name. 3 times. I looked up. What is this? Referrals. My stomach tightened. Daniel turned his laptop toward me. Ashley's Instagram page filled the screen. I had seen the posts before, without thinking much about them. Emerging artists, DM me if you're looking for serious gallery opportunities. Another. Westside is accepting submissions. Amazing opportunity to get your work in front of collectors. Another showed Ashley, standing beside 2 younger artists. So proud to welcome 2 new creatives into the Westside family. Daniel tapped the screen. 3 artists joined after communicating directly with Ashley. That doesn't mean she knew anything. I agree. He looked at me carefully. But investigators will want to know whether she understood the fee structure when she recruited them. Of course she understood it. She was paying the fees herself. Exactly. A cold sensation moved through my chest. I had wanted my parents to discover that Ashley's career was fake. I had wanted the gallery exposed if it was exploiting people. I had not imagined my sister might become legally entangled in it. Could she actually be charged? Possibly. Possibly not. For what? Depends on what investigators establish. If she knowingly helped bring people into a deceptive operation, it becomes more serious. If she received compensation for referrals and failed to disclose it, more questions arise. I rubbed my forehead. This escalated quickly. Daniel nodded. This is why I told you from the beginning, once regulators get involved, neither of us controls where the evidence leads. My phone rang. Elliot Mercer. I stared at his name. Daniel gestured toward the speaker button. I answered. Elena. Elliot didn't bother with pleasantries. Did you file the complaint? What makes you think I did? Because investigators have information that didn't come from our books. What information? Comparative payment data. Former artist statements. Family subsidy patterns. His breathing was audible. Someone has been researching us. Maybe someone, finally, started asking questions. Elena, this could destroy my business. If your business survives only when nobody asks questions, that sounds like your problem. Daniel raised his eyebrows approvingly. Elliot's voice hardened. Your sister is involved too. I'm aware investigators spoke with her. She referred artists. That's between Ashley and investigators. You think you're punishing me? I'm not interested in punishing you. Then what do you want? I thought about that. 6 months earlier, maybe I would have answered differently. I might have said I wanted Ashley exposed. I might have said I wanted my parents humiliated. But sitting there now, something had shifted. I want everyone to stop pretending. I hung up. Daniel stared at me. That was surprisingly healthy. Don't ruin it. At 1130, Ashley called. This time I answered, Elena. Her voice sounded small. Nothing like the sister who used to explain to me that architecture was basically corporate drafting. What happened? They called again. Investigators. Yes. What do they want? They asked whether Westside ever compensated me for bringing artists in. My grip tightened around the phone. Did they? Silence. Ashley. Sometimes. How much? It wasn't much. I closed my eyes. How much? 500, if someone signed a 6-month exhibition package. I heard Daniel stop typing. How many people? 3. So, $1,500? I didn't think of it as a referral fee. What did you think it was? A thank you. Ashley. I didn't know the gallery was doing anything illegal. Did the people you referred know? They would be paying $1,500 every month? Another silence. Ashley. Not before they met Elliot. There it was. I leaned back. Then tell investigators exactly that. What? The truth. Elena, I could need a lawyer. Then get one. Her breathing became uneven. Mom and Dad think you caused this. I provided information about the gallery. You did this. I helped report a business model that looked deceptive. Oh my God. Ashley, you did this because they forgot your birthday. My jaw tightened. No. You bought that ridiculous car, embarrassed me at dinner. And now investigators are treating me like a criminal because Mom and Dad paid attention to me instead of you. For a moment I couldn't speak. Then something inside me finally broke. This was never about one birthday. She went silent. It was every birthday. My voice stayed low. Every Christmas. Every graduation. Every time Mom introduced you as her talented daughter and then couldn't explain what I did for a living. Elena, when I won my first architecture award, Dad left the ceremony early because you had an exhibition opening. She said nothing. When I bought my condo, nobody came over for 3 weeks. When you rented your loft, Mom organized a housewarming party. Elena, I didn't make them do those things. No, you didn't. That mattered. And admitting it hurt. You weren't responsible for how they treated me. I swallowed. But you benefited from it. And after a while, you started acting like their favoritism proved you were actually better. Ashley's voice cracked. I never said that. You didn't have to. The line went quiet. Finally, she whispered, I'm scared. For the first time that day, she sounded like my little sister, rather than my rival. Then get a lawyer, I said more gently. Tell them everything. Don't lie. Don't delete anything. Will you help me? I knew what she meant. I also knew the answer. I'll tell you what I know. She hesitated. Okay, but I'm not fixing this for you. She hung up without answering. At 2:00 p.m., Dad called. Elena, we need to meet tonight. Again. This isn't funny. I know. We've spoken to an attorney. For Ashley? Yes. Dad inhaled. The potential legal exposure is significant. What does that mean? We'll explain tonight. 7 o'clock. I almost refused. Then he added, we also need to discuss finances. Of course we did. At 7:00 p.m., I walked into my parents' dining room for the second time in 2 days. The room looked completely different. No dinner. No wine. No performance of family normalcy. Bank statements covered the table. Mom had her laptop open to a criminal defense firm. Dad had a legal pad full of numbers. Ashley sat in the corner wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. She looked 27 going on 17. Dad pointed toward the empty chair. Sit down. I did. He pushed a printed estimate toward me. An attorney believes Ashley may need extensive representation if the investigation continues. I read the numbers. Initial retainer. Investigation response. Negotiations. Possible trial preparation. Estimated range. $40,000, $60,000. I whistled softly. Mom frowned. This isn't funny. I didn't say it was. Dad leaned forward. We've reviewed what we spent supporting Ashley. And his jaw tightened. You were right. Those 3 words almost knocked the air out of me. My father had never said them to me like that. You were right, he repeated. We spent too much. Ashley looked down. Dad continued. We thought we were supporting a legitimate developing career. I laughed bitterly. You never investigated. We trusted her. There was another sentence hidden inside that one. We trusted her. More than me. Dad slid another paper across the table. We can cover some legal costs, but this could become financially difficult. I already knew where this was going. Still, I wanted to hear him say it. What do you want from me? Mom spoke. Elena, you clearly have resources we didn't understand before. There it was. My successful career had finally become important. Not because they were proud, because they needed access to it. Dad cleared his throat. We're asking whether you would contribute to Ashley's legal defense. I stared at him. Then at Mom. Then Ashley. You're serious? She's your sister. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because sometimes hypocrisy becomes so complete that laughter is the only available response. So let me understand. I folded my hands on the table. You spent nearly $90,000 supporting Ashley's lifestyle. Elena, you refused to loan me money for my condo because I needed to learn financial independence. Dad looked away. You ignored my career. Mom started crying. Please don't do this. And now you want money from that career to pay for the consequences of the career you chose to subsidize. Ashley suddenly stood. This is exactly what I mean. Everyone looked at her. You're enjoying this. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Her face was red. You finally get to be the successful one, while I'm the failure. Ashley, you destroyed my life because you were jealous. I stood too. You think this is about jealousy? You reported my gallery. I reported something that appeared fraudulent. You knew I could get dragged into it. No, I didn't. But now that I am, you're happy. That accusation landed harder than I expected. I looked at her. No. My voice dropped. I wanted the truth to embarrass you. Everyone went silent. I continued. I wanted Mom and Dad to finally see that the daughter they treated like a disappointment had built something real while they were paying to maintain your image. Ashley stared at me. That part is true. My throat tightened. But I never wanted you facing criminal charges. For once, there was no clever comeback. No victory. Just 4 people standing inside the ruins of years of resentment. Dad broke the silence. Regardless of how we got here, Ashley needs help. I turned toward him. And you expect me to pay. We expect you to act like family. Something inside me went completely still. Family. Mom whispered Elena. I picked up my jacket. No. Dad stood. What? The answer is no. Elena, think carefully. I have? She could lose everything. So could I, if I spend my entire life rescuing people who never showed up for me. Ashley looked devastated. Maybe part of me hated seeing that. But boundaries don't stop being necessary just because enforcing them hurts. Get a good lawyer, I told her. Tell the truth. Cooperate. Then I looked at my parents. But you funded this. You encouraged it. You dismissed every warning sign because calling Ashley successful mattered more than asking whether she actually was. Dad's expression hardened. You're walking away from your sister. No. I opened the door. I'm walking away from the job you assigned me the moment you discovered I had money. Outside, the night air hit my face. I reached my Mercedes before my hands started shaking. Then my phone buzzed. Daniel. Gallery license formally suspended this afternoon. 3 artists subpoenaed. Ashley's next investigator interview is Monday. A second message appeared. How did the meeting go? I stared through the windshield at my parents' house. Then typed, they asked me to pay Ashley's legal fees. Daniel responded almost immediately. And I looked back one final time. Mom stood behind the curtains. Ashley was visible behind her. Dad was still at the table, surrounded by financial documents. For 29 years, I had believed winning meant making them finally choose me. Now I understood something far more important. I didn't need to be chosen. I typed 2 words. I refused. Then I started the engine and drove away. But Ashley's Monday interview would uncover one final detail none of us had anticipated. And that detail would decide whether my sister walked away from Westside Contemporary as another victim or as part of the fraud itself. Monday morning arrived without fireworks. No dramatic police cars outside Ashley's apartment. No handcuffs. No frantic call from Mom. Just rain against my office windows and an email from a contractor asking whether a conference room wall could somehow be moved 6 inches without changing the electrical plan. Architecture, unlike my family, remained wonderfully predictable. At 9:08, Daniel appeared in my doorway. Ashley's interview is today. I know. You okay? I'm working. That wasn't my question. I looked up. No. But I'm better than I expected. That was true. For the first time in years, I had spent an entire weekend without trying to predict what my parents thought about me. I went to the gym, bought groceries, drove the Mercedes along Lake Shore Drive for absolutely no reason. Sunday afternoon, I even sat inside the car in my parking garage for several minutes after coming home. When I bought it, the Mercedes had been a weapon. A $94,000 message to my family. Now that felt embarrassing. The car hadn't done anything wrong. I liked driving it. I liked the engine. I liked the ridiculous matte black paint. Maybe something bought out of anger didn't have to remain angry forever. At 1143, my phone rang. Ashley. I stared at her name before answering. How did it go? They offered me a deal. I sat straighter. What kind? Her voice trembled. Cooperate fully. Turn over messages, referral records, everything I have involving Elliot. And if they determine I didn't knowingly participate in the larger fraud, they'll recommend reduced charges. The phrase hit me. Reduced charges. They think the referral payments matter. How serious? I don't know yet. Ashley, do you have a lawyer with you? Yes. Good. She went quiet. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. I told them everything. I leaned back. Everything. The referral money. The posts. The conversations with Elliot. Her breathing shook. And I told them Mom and Dad were paying most of my expenses. That was probably the right thing. I know. Another pause. Elena. Yeah. I lied to you. My stomach tightened. About what? My sales. I said nothing. I knew they were terrible. Ashley. I knew. Her voice cracked. I kept telling Mom and Dad things were going well because they were so proud of me. I closed my eyes. There it was. The truth, underneath all of it. Not a sophisticated criminal mastermind. Not some brilliant scam artist. A scared 27-year-old woman who had discovered that her parents' admiration depended on maintaining an image. The first year she continued, I thought things would improve. Then they started introducing me as their successful artist daughter. She laughed bitterly, and every time they said it, it became harder to tell them I wasn't actually successful. So you kept taking the money? Yes. Why? Because I thought eventually I'd become what they already believed I was. That sentence hurt more than I expected. Because suddenly, Ashley and I didn't seem quite so different. I had spent years working harder, hoping my parents would eventually notice me. Ashley had spent years pretending harder, terrified they would stop noticing her. Same parents. Different damage. I hated you sometimes, she whispered. I stared at the rain running down my window. Why? Because you didn't need them. I almost laughed. You have no idea how badly I needed them. No. Her voice softened. I think I do now. We didn't repair 29 years of family dysfunction during that phone call. We didn't apologize for everything. We didn't suddenly become best friends. Life doesn't work like that. But before hanging up, Ashley said, I'm sorry they treated you like you mattered less. And for the first time, I believed she understood what she was apologizing for. The investigation continued for months. Westside Contemporary's business license remained suspended, while authorities reviewed contracts, payments, referrals, advertising practices, and tax records. Other artists came forward. Some had spent their savings. Others had borrowed money from parents. One family had reportedly spent more than $40,000, believing their daughter was building a legitimate gallery career. The more investigators uncovered, the less my family drama mattered. This wasn't about Ashley anymore. It was about a business model that had monetized people's desperation to be recognized. Ashley cooperated. That saved her. But it didn't erase everything. Eventually, she pleaded guilty to a consumer fraud-related conspiracy charge connected to referrals she had made while accepting compensation from the gallery. She avoided prison, 2 years probation, community service, financial penalties, and the humiliation of having her carefully constructed artistic success collapse publicly. My parents spent approximately $67,000 on attorneys. The irony was impossible to ignore. 3 years of subsidizing Ashley's fantasy had already cost them tens of thousands. Then, dismantling the consequences cost nearly as much again. Dad sold a boat he rarely used. Mom canceled a planned European vacation. They stopped sending Ashley monthly transfers. For the first time since college, my sister had to support herself. And something unexpected happened. She did. About 8 months after the investigation began, Ashley accepted a junior position at a graphic design firm. The salary wasn't glamorous. The job didn't come with gallery openings or champagne receptions. Nobody called her a visionary. She designed advertising layouts, corporate graphics, website assets, and occasionally complained about clients requesting 17 revisions to the same logo. She hated it at first. Then, she became good at it. Really good. One afternoon, she sent me a picture of a billboard she had designed. Her message said, "First thing I've ever been paid to create, instead of paying someone to display." Weird feeling. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then replied, "Better feeling." 3 dots appeared. Much. Our relationship remained cautious, but honest. That was an improvement. My parents changed too, at least outwardly. Suddenly, Dad wanted to know about architecture. What projects are you working on? What does schematic design mean? Are you managing the whole team? Mom started following my firm's social media account. When an industry publication featured one of my projects, she sent the article to relatives. Our Elena designed this. Our Elena. Years earlier, those words would have meant everything to me. Now they mostly made me tired. 6 months after the Westside investigation, I received another professional award. Mom and Dad attended the ceremony. They sat in the 3rd row. When my name was announced, Mom stood and applauded. Dad took approximately 40 photographs. Afterward, he hugged me. "I'm proud of you." For a second, 20-year-old Elena appeared inside me. The girl who had wanted desperately to hear those words. I thought they would heal something. They didn't. They felt good. But good isn't the same as healing. "Thank you," I said. Dad looked disappointed. Maybe he expected more. Maybe he finally understood that affection doesn't accumulate retroactively. You cannot ignore someone for decades, notice them after a crisis, and expect the emotional account to balance overnight. 2 years after my 29th birthday, Westside Contemporary no longer existed. The gallery closed permanently. Its owners faced far more serious legal consequences connected to the wider investigation. Several affected families pursued restitution. Ashley completed most of her probation without incident and kept her graphic design job. She moved out of the expensive River North loft and into a smaller apartment she could actually afford. The first time I visited, she gave me a tour. "Kitchen," she pointed. "Bathroom." Another point. "Bedroom." Then she dramatically opened a tiny closet. "And my prestigious private gallery." I laughed. Actually laughed. She had hung 3 of her metal pieces inside. "Prime wall space?" I asked. "Extremely exclusive." "How much?" "Free." Finally found a good gallery. She smiled. That moment didn't erase anything either. But it was something. As for my parents, our relationship settled into a strange middle ground. We speak. We have dinner, occasionally. They ask about my work. I answer. But I stopped organizing my life around their approval. That was the real change. For years I had imagined revenge as a scoreboard. Ashley loses. I win. Parents regret everything. Everyone finally admits Elena was better. But once the anger faded, that fantasy felt childish. Ashley wasn't my real enemy. She was another product of the same family system. I became the invisible daughter. She became the daughter who believed she had to remain extraordinary or risk losing everything. Neither role was healthy. Neither of us chose it. What mattered was what we did after recognizing it. I kept the Mercedes. Of course I did. People occasionally ask whether spending $94,367 on a car was financially stupid. Probably. Daniel still insists it was psychologically efficient capital deployment, whatever that means. Every morning I walk into my garage and see that matte black AMG waiting for me. For a while it reminded me of revenge. Then it reminded me of my birthday. Now, it mostly reminds me of the night I finally stopped asking permission to be proud of myself. I was 29 years old. Successful. Independent. Good at something difficult. And I had spent most of my adult life waiting for 3 people to validate what hundreds of colleagues and clients already knew. The saddest part wasn't that my family failed to see me. It was that I had started believing I was invisible, simply because they weren't looking. Sometimes, Mom still overcompensates. Sometimes Dad asks too many questions about my projects. Sometimes, Ashley and I fall back into old patterns and have to catch ourselves. Nothing became perfect. Nothing was magically fixed. And that's fine, because my happy ending wasn't my parents finally choosing me over Ashley. It wasn't Ashley losing her fake career. It wasn't the gallery closing. It wasn't even the Mercedes. My happy ending was realizing there never should have been a competition in the first place. I didn't need my sister to lose for my accomplishments to become real. I didn't need my parents to regret spending 6 figures before my life became valuable. And I certainly didn't need another forgotten birthday to remind me that I deserved to celebrate myself. The invisible daughter didn't become undeniable because she bought an expensive car. She became undeniable the moment she finally looked at herself and decided, I was never invisible. They just weren't paying attention. And that was their failure. Not mine.